Hello, hello. We should be live. I'm always very suspicious about whether I'm actually live or not. Oh no, is anybody still there? Disaster. Right, hang on. I'm going to look on YouTube now. All right, I'm back. Something went horribly wrong with my broadband, but now I'm back. Are you there? Could somebody maybe type for me a little comment to know that you are there? Anyone? Jeet, hello. Thank you very much. Oh, and we have LinkedIn as well. Praise all that be. We are live. Okay. I hate this technology, the anxiety I have every time I push that go live button as to whether anything is actually going to happen. Honestly, I feel a little bit sick now. Okay. Pull it together, Gigi. Pull it together. The world did not end when my broadband crashed. Hey, everybody. I hope you are well. Happy Wednesday. I don't know about you guys, but I have had a rough week. We're talking working until 1 a.m. in the morning. 1 a.m. is obviously the morning. I'm putting together my new masterclasses for the new leadership principles, and I had totally forgotten how much work went into building my masterclasses, because I don't know if any of you have seen my masterclasses. I will give you some free at the end, but I actually do the illustration, I do the animation, I write the scripts, I do the voiceover, I do the audio mastering, I pull it all together, I do the editing. I built the whole thing myself. I don't do the illustration from scratch, but I adapt existing illustrations from free pics. And it's such hard work, and I had forgotten about it. So damn that Amazon for creating those new leadership principles. Nothing for 7 whole years. And a few months after I launched my masterclasses, 2 new leadership principles. Curse you, Amazon. Or not, because I love you really, right? Okay, so why don't we say a quick hello whilst we wait for people to arrive? I would love to know where you are all coming from. I see some familiar faces. I see some exciting something coming up there from Jeet by the look of things. So Joe, I'm going to come to you in a second. Okay, so Jeet, where are you coming from? Low Monk, I know exactly where you're coming from. So hola, Aman, David, Mehran. These all sound like new names to me. I don't think I've come across you guys before. So welcome. I shouldn't say guys, you folks. I'm trying so hard and failing so miserably with my choice of language. Pranav, welcome. Hello. You're coming from New York. Gee, excellent. I love New York. If I didn't live in London and I was going to go and live in a big city somewhere, I think I would definitely choose New York. It's such a cool place. I love the vibe. About everybody else, where are you all from? Aman, where are you coming to us from today? David, would love to know. Let me know. I promise I won't come stalk you if you tell me what city you're in. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Okay, so Boston, Massachusetts, fabulous. North Carolina, lovely. Ah, Israel, hello. Shalom. And Nitin from Dallas, cool. And London, up the Brits. Another South Carolina, awesome. Right, cool. So we have a nice range of people, which is always exciting. So let me do my intro and I will just explain to you how this whole thing works. So some of you will know this already, but hey, it's part of my spiel. I am Gigi and I am the Amazon interview whiz. I was a senior leader at Amazon for many years, and I was both obviously an interviewer because everybody who works at Amazon is an interviewer, but also most particularly and useful to you guys, you folks, I was a bar raiser. So I bar raised on tech and non-tech roles. I bar raised for roles all over the globe, Japan, the USA, Canada, Mexico, Spain, Turkey, France, you name it, and across all different job families, because that's the unique thing about being a bar raiser. Most people in Amazon will only interview within their own kind of sphere of skills. So if you're a finance person, you'll only ever interview finance people. If you're a logistics person, you'll only ever interview logistics. If you're a recruiter recruiting for product managers or SDEs, you're only going to be recruiting and talking to people who have that skill set. Whereas as a bar raiser, you interview and bar raise across every single skill set in the organization. So I have hired hundreds of Amazonians across so many different job families, and I do know exactly what it takes to get hired at Amazon. I've had a fabulous week at my academy this week. I think I've had 6 hires come through this week for my academy, which is super exciting, and also testimonies that I'm doing the right thing. So I know exactly what it takes to get hired at Amazon. I now run my own academy, as I've mentioned. It's a set of digital courses that provides all of the information that you need to prepare really, really well for your interview, literally at a fraction of the price that it would cost you if you wanted one-to-one coaching. I know so many people would love to have one-to-one coaching, but if you're preparing for Amazon, you've got to put in somewhere between 20 and 30 hours. You're probably going to need a good 5 hours coaching to really, really do your prep properly in terms of the basics. And at $200 a pop, most people can't afford that. So I created my academy. I am dedicated to Amazon interview expertise for all, not just people with plenty of money to throw around the place. So I built my YouTube channel. I obviously built my academy, and I do these free sessions here. I give away loads of content on LinkedIn. It's all there. So how I'm going to run today is, and please do stick around to the end. I know I've mentioned my academy a few times. I will give you a freebie for my academy that I promise every one of you will get great value from. So stick to the end. The way we're going to do this today is I'm going to ask you to write your questions in the comments box there, and I will look through them and I will try and find questions that I think are the most useful for as many people as possible. A warning, I am not going to be able to give you answers on very specific kind of questions relating to specific skill sets or specific jobs or specific technical questions. I am an expert at the interview process. I am definitely an expert in the leadership principles, but with well over 300 job families in Amazon, no one person can be a technical expert in all of those. So I'm not going to be able to answer those, but I will let you know if I don't think I can answer it. So you know I'm not just ignoring you. Okay, so I think that's my whole intro done. Thank you for joining. Please do just slam your questions down into the chat box there, and I will attempt to answer those for you. In the meantime, whilst I am waiting for people to ask their questions, as I mentioned, I thought I might just start talking to you briefly about the new leadership principles. So I'm definitely expecting the new leadership principles to start appearing in interviews from now. They were launched in the 1st of July. That was it, the 1st of July. In theory, the whole big PR thing happened at the beginning of July. But actually, the leadership principles and how they are defined from a criteria point of view, what looks good, what doesn't look good, and the questions for the AIQB, which is the Amazon Interview Question Bank, didn't actually land for Amazonians until about, I think, 3 weeks ago now. So up until that point, they were just theory. No one actually knew how to test for them, and nobody actually knew what the questions were. Now people know how to test for them, and now people know what the questions are. So at this point, I would suspect that some brave Amazonians are going to start introducing into their interviews these 2 questions. Whether I think that they are going to be very popular, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced because there are 16 leadership principles now, and you are still only going to be able to ask probably a maximum of 10 once you get through to panel. So you're going to have to pick. You've always had to pick and choose very carefully because you want to pick leadership principles that are going to help you to understand, can someone do that job? Now, doing that job and making Amazon a wonderful place to work aren't necessarily direct bedfellows. So a hiring manager, I suspect, is going to bias towards leadership principles that are going to help them understand, can the candidate do the job? Now, there are some exceptions, people who manage giant teams in the fulfillment centers, distribution centers, those things, etc. People who are L8s, L9s, who have massive organizations. I would suspect that strive to be Earth's best employer will start to feature in those interviews. But if you're an L4, you're an L5, I would suspect that as a hiring manager, I wouldn't be so excited about introducing that as a variable to help me understand if someone could do the job. Equally, when you think about strive to be Earth's best employer, there's actually a massive amount of overlap between hire and develop the best and earn trust in the actual questions that are going to be in the Amazon interview question bank. So again, as a hiring manager, I would probably look for hire and develop the best and earn trust to give me evidence for strive to be Earth's best employer, rather than ask specifically strive to be Earth's best employer. And then the other leadership principle, obviously scale and scope bring responsibility. Again, as a hiring manager looking to find someone to fill a job, if someone's going to be in a job that's very close to carbon footprint occurring things like a buyer, someone who's making decisions about, I don't know, materials to be bought to build a fulfillment center, whatever it might be, real estate, etc., then I'd be very interested in that, because clearly what they do has a direct impact on the environment. If I was hiring a finance manager, if I was hiring a solutions design architect, if I was hiring let me think of another one, loss prevention manager, I might not be so concerned with those leadership principles. So I definitely expect them to come through, but I don't expect them to be the most popular. I don't think they're everybody's new sandbox. Will remain to be seen. Okay, so let's see what questions we have out there. Right, let's see. So, okay. Jeet's on his way to an interview, as in hoping to get one soon. So that is awesome. Oh, we've got people from Agra in India. Excellent. New Jersey. Lovely. Okay, so Nathan, I think you're making an observation rather than a question, but let's just pull this one up for you. So you completed your loop on the 12th of August. Okay, so we're now the 25th, so that's 13 days ago. So you're definitely over the 5 business days, and it's been crickets since, I think you mean, typo. So chase them, Nathan, honestly. 5 working days is meant to be the SLA. Most people, most of my candidates that I'm hearing about these days actually aren't hearing within 5 working days. Even if they're being offered a hire, it's taking more than 5 working days. Certainly on my side of the world, I also think in the US, it's that time of year where there's lots of vacation/holidays happening. So I think that can probably be slowing up the process as well. So if you still haven't heard Nathan, you should definitely follow up with your recruiter. Be polite, just drop them a note and say, obviously, I'm still super excited to hear what the outcome is. Can you please let me know when I can expect to hear? Be polite, but be proactive. So fingers crossed for you. Okay. Hello, Monk. So salary discussion seems to be a non-negotiable thing when you're talking about an L5. Is there really space to negotiate, or is it take it or leave it? It's a bit of a case-by-case basis, Low Monk. Hang on, let me just drop my camera down a bit as well. The angle of that is really weird. There we go. So it's a bit of a case-by-case basis. Sometimes the offer that you'll get is genuinely the best offer that they can give to you based on the scale of the role, the scope of the role, what your country's kind of standard is, etc. And the offer that they make you is genuinely the best offer that they can give you. But there are plenty of people who do negotiate their offer up. If you are going to try and negotiate, my strong recommendation is that you focus your negotiation on the share option, the RSUs. That's because it's not really real money, if that makes sense. It doesn't come straight off the bottom line of the P&L, and therefore Amazon are much more willing to negotiate on RSUs. So if you get the opportunity to negotiate, I'd say focus on negotiating the RSUs. The other reason I say RSUs is obviously $1 today, €1 today is worth less next year. It won't be worth €1 next year just because of inflation. A euro/dollar that you get this year in RSUs are quite likely, based on Amazon's share price history, to be worth more than the $1/euro that you got this year. So that's where I suggest you focus. Have a view of what your bottom line is. So what will you not accept below? And have a view of what your target is. Obviously, you're aiming for your target, but at least if you have a bottom line, if you can get to somewhere between your target and your bottom line, at least you've got a clear sense of direction. I think one of the most where negotiation goes wrong is where the candidate doesn't have a clear view of what they will accept. And they're always eking out, trying to get a little bit more and a little bit more. And the recruiter can get rather fed up if that happens. So absolutely negotiate, go back once at least, twice if the offer that you're getting is really a long way off your bottom line and nowhere near your target. But otherwise, once you've got to about a backwards and forwards once or twice, then I would say draw the line there, be very clear what that bottom line is. But yes, the majority of people, I would say, can negotiate to a degree. Okay. Hey, Arun. Okay, you've not heard back Friday. So today is only Wednesday. So no, don't be chasing yet. So the SLA is 5 working days. So Friday doesn't count. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. So I would expect that you should hear end of Friday, probably Monday. So wait until Tuesday. If you haven't heard anything by Tuesday, I would say follow up then. Okie dokie. So let's move on then. Ooh, just had a big jump of questions. I've lost it now. Okay. So there's a couple of people just asking me what you should expect, what you should cover for your first interview, what you should expect in your first interview. So it's going to depend. I'm just going to put this one up here. Now, this person's asked specifically for L8, but it won't be any different for L8, L7, L6, L5, L4. And the reason I say it won't be any different is it will be different for everybody because it's very much dependent on the team. So some teams will be focusing their first interview on technical nature of things, so doing technical skills test. If you're not going into a technical role, if you are an L8, your work is far less likely to be very specifically technical. I'm not imagining many L8 SD software development managers are going to be doing much coding, for example. So when you're up at a level of L8, you're probably going to be expecting more leadership type questions in your first interview. But different teams will do it differently. Some teams will be focusing on the technical in the first rounds to really understand your skill set. Other teams might focus more on the leadership behaviors and the principles in the first rounds. Other teams actually don't even go anywhere near either of those and tend to do those very standard, talk me through some key projects that you've worked on recently, talk me through your career history, those types of questions. Now, in theory, they're not supposed to. You really are supposed to be asking the technical or the behavioral questions. Sometimes they'll do a combination of all of them. So I cannot sit here and tell you exactly what to expect for your first interview, either at an L8 level or indeed any other level. No one will be able to tell you that because it's so specific to the individual team, in which case you must prepare yourself for all eventualities. So have yourself a good prepared story for why Amazon. They don't mean why Amazon, they mean why this job, but have yourself prepared a story for that. Have yourself a prepared story for tell me about yourself. Have yourself a prepared kind of script for going back through some key projects in your prior role and the things that you would like to highlight that relate directly to this role, because you want to convince them that those projects tie in very nicely to this role and you are the right person for the job. You have to know the leadership principles, absolutely, and have your star examples ready to go into should somebody ask you behavioral questions. And obviously, from a technical point, if you are going into a technical role, you'll need to be able to at least talk to maybe some questions about the technical nature of your role. Okay. So I'm sorry, that was a bit of a non-answer for people who are asking me for some specifics, but no one can tell you exactly what you can expect because these days it is so variable across all of the different teams. It used to be very standard. When I started 6 years ago, it was very standard in how every team approached the interview process. Deviation just everywhere now. It's like branching all over the place. It's like the timeline in Loki. So don't believe anyone who tells you they can predict for you what you're going to see and what you're going to get, because they can't. Okay, moving on then. Okay. How does STAR response fit in? How did you tie the leadership principles as examples? So you're not tying the leadership principles to the STAR response. What you're doing is you're answering a leadership principle based question with a structure that is STAR. Now, there are lots of different structures that can be used, different frameworks. There's CAR, there's PAR, there's a few other ones. So you don't have to use STAR. It's just a very common one that Amazon just likes to focus on, but you can use one of these others. So what will happen is someone's not going to ask you, tell me about a time where you earned trust. No, that's not what you're going to get. You're going to get a question where they're trying to understand earn trust through asking you a very specific scenario-based question. So tell me about a time where you needed somebody in your team's cooperation to do something and they were resistant. What was the scenario? Tell me about how they responded and if you managed to get their cooperation in the end. That's going to be a type of question that you might get. Then what you have to do is use the STAR structure to answer it. So you would say, potentially, well, the situation was I was working at Amazon as a head of marketing, and we had to do a launch for a global, I'm making this up as I'm talking along, by the way. We had to do a launch for a new global property. The original launch time was meant to be 9 p.m. British summer time, but some shifts happen and they wanted to launch it at 5 a.m. British summer time. I needed to get my team to agree to come in to the office and be there at 4 a.m. Situation. My task, this is a very simple one, by the way. My task was to blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. The action that I took was blah-de-blah-de-blah-de-blah. The result was blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. If I could do it again, because I always add an I to the end of star, I make it starry for improvement. If you want to know why, check out my channel, the video that is called The Hidden Leadership Principle That No One Will Tell You About. Put an improvement on the end and you say, if I was to do it again, this is what I would do differently. So that's how the leadership principles connect to the questions, which connect to the answer framework, which in this case would star, but you could use any of these other ones, par, car, etc. But the key to it all is to understand the leadership principles and come up with examples from your career history that match those leadership principle behaviors. Okay. What other questions do we have? Okay. Pranav, hello. So, should you accept an interview on a different role if you failed to crack the previous one only a month ago? Would feedback from the rejected one be a factor? So, the first thing is, Pranav, the people who asked you to go and interview for this new role have already read that feedback. They've already seen it and they've already read it. And so the feedback can't be that bad, because if the feedback was that bad, they wouldn't be inviting you along for a new interview. Would feedback from that first interview be a factor in the decision-making process for this next interview? In theory, no. This should be an opportunity for you to, once again, go through the interview process, share your feedback and your examples with the interviewer. They shouldn't be looking at the data that was gathered the first time to make a decision on this one. However, obviously, nothing's ever as black and white as that. What might happen is if you indicate a certain negative behavior this time round, your interviewer is very likely to go back and check the last time to see if that's consistent negative behavior. So sometimes someone is kind of on the fence as to whether they're uncomfortable with something that they're seeing in a candidate's examples. If you've only got that one set of data to use, because that's the candidate's first interview, then you have to make your decision based on that and take a risk if you don't have quite confidence in it. But when there's a set of data that's come historically already, what you will inevitably do is go reach into that data and see whether you can use that data to validate the concerns from this time, or whether actually that data shows something quite different and it negates the borderline concern that you have this time round. So it is, I guess, a sense check, the previous data, but it isn't from a process point of view pulled in along with the new data, smashed together into a big old mix and then used to make a decision. It's not. It's that data from this time that's brought in to use as a decision. And maybe they might reference bits and bobs from the first time if they feel they need some extra data and validation from this time round. But if it was that bad, you wouldn't be getting called back for another interview. So be confident. There's something good there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking you back. Okay. Let's see what else we've got there. Okay. Hey, Mahesh. So your loop got cancelled. So either someone pipped you to the post or possibly the role was withdrawn, but usually someone pips you to the post if that's what happens. So they told you they'd consider you for another site or position. Do they often say that not to disappoint the candidate? No, Mahesh. People in Amazon don't really placate as a general principle. Most people in Amazon are pretty upfront. You made it all the way to loop, which means that the people that interviewed you already thought you had a really good chance of raising the bar. It's quite hard to get people through to loop, depending on how long a process is, obviously. My experience was when I was interviewing as a hiring manager, because as a bar raiser, you're only ever there at the final stage, loop. But as a hiring manager, I hired I don't know, for 30 roles over my years at Amazon hiring for my own team. I ran big teams. I would have said 2 in 10 people made it from round 1 to round 2. I always did 2 early rounds, then on to loop. It's my preference. So I'd said 2 in 10 made it from round 1 to round 2. And then probably about 4, 5 in 10 made it through from round 2 to loop. So obviously, you get through a lot of people by the time you get to loop. So you're a promising candidate, or you wouldn't have made it all the way through to loop, which means you are definitely worth looking at to see whether they can find you a different potential site or position. Now, how likely that is to actually happen, the probability, I don't have data on that. I'm not sure that anybody ever tracks that data, but I promise you, no one is just saying nice things to make you feel less sad. You're a good prospect. That recruiter wants to hit their numbers, and therefore you look like a tasty morsel that could help them hit their numbers. So they are going to put some effort into seeing if they can match you to something else. So good luck. I hope that helps. Beauteous every day. Oh, that's lovely. I'd love to be beauteous every day. Okay, you are very welcome for my videos. I'm glad they helped you. So you've someone from HR in your loop. Will she ask you the same type of competency questions? Okay, so Amazon HR is not the same as Amazon Recruitment. So it's a little bit confusing to me. I'm going to assume you mean recruitment rather than HR, because if someone from HR was in your loop, you would be applying for an HR role, and then you wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going to assume you mean someone from recruitment is in your loop. Yes, they will ask you the same type of competency questions. The purpose of the loop is to either check your technical competencies or check your competencies against the leadership principles. So them being from recruitment shouldn't mean that they are looking to do anything other than test for those 2 things. Now, if you're not in recruitment, then I'm guessing it's not the technical competencies piece they'd be covering off. So in which case, I would suspect that they're going to cover off the leadership principles and the behavioral questions. Sometimes they'll have recruiters actually in the loop because they really, really understand the team really well. There are some teams that the recruitment relationship is incredibly important, and the recruiters are a really important partner. And therefore, that's when they introduce them into the actual loop itself, even if you're not actually applying for a recruitment role. So I hope that helps. Okay, what else do we have? Okay. Sonali, hello, welcome. So you have your loop tomorrow, and you want to understand if you can repeat examples from the phone screen. Yes, you can. There's no rule against it. But my advice is that you should try and avoid repeating questions wherever possible. The reason being is Amazon is looking for as much breadth of data as they can possibly gather as evidence to convince them that you are raising the bar on the leadership principles. So if you were going, I'd use a court case as an analogy that works well for me. If you were going to court to try and plead your case for something to a judge and jury, you wouldn't bring the same witnesses back time and time again to speak to the judge and jury. Even if they were speaking to them about different points, you still wouldn't bring them back repeatedly. You'd bring in as many different witnesses as you could so that judge and jury could see a huge number of people are all convinced that you are the right person for the job, or that the evidence is there across a breadth. So you should avoid it if you can, but if you can is a big ask, because by the time you get through to a loop, you've been asked a lot of questions. When you're in a loop, you're going to be asked lots of questions. So sometimes you run out of examples. So repeating an example is okay. If you're going to repeat it, make sure you answer a different leadership principle type question with that example. Hopefully you'll follow my advice and write down every question that you're asked in your interview process and write down the answer that you gave so you'll be able to remember. And if you're going to pull this same example out again from phone screen through to loop, then use it for a very different leadership principle. Really, all you want to be able to do is it should share the situation, but when you're talking task, action, and result, you should be really, really focusing on other areas. I would say you should warn the interviewer that you're going to use an example that you have used before. They're unlikely to say, well, don't do that. But what it does is it prepares them for when they read the notes of other people, or if they've already read the notes from your previous phone screens. There's something about being really excited by an example that you're given by a candidate and then discovering that they've given the same example to somebody else. It's a bit of a hard thing to articulate very well, but there's something a bit disappointing about that. So if you warn your interviewer, then they don't ever experience that disappointment, because what you can say is, just to let you know, I've used this example in my phone screen. It's really relevant for this, and I'm going to focus on a different aspect of that example when I give you this answer, in which case they know that you've said it before, you know that they know that you know, but they're very prepared for the fact that you are aware that you have to reshape that to this other leadership principle. If everyone's done their due diligence before you go to loop, they will have read your phone screen notes. So they will know if you're repeating an example. So there's no hiding it. If you want to do it, just warn them. Okay, I hope that helps. Oh, big jump. What other questions can... Sorry, I'm just scrolling through. Okay, this is a good question. Siva, nobody's ever asked me this question before. What's the ideal prep time for interview? All right, so I know you've got a few other questions there, so I'll go through them bit by bit, but I wanted to cover off what's the ideal prep time for interview. So obviously, this is going to vary. If you are an incredibly experienced interviewer and you've been and you've been doing lots of interviews over the past couple of months, and maybe you've interviewed for Amazon before, you understand the leadership principles, then obviously it's going to be much less than someone who's had very little interviewee experience in the recent past and knows nothing about Amazon. So with that, a bit of a disclaimer. This is purely my point of view. You will hear other people saying other things. I think you need to put in somewhere between, let's assume this is your first Amazon interview. I think you need to put in somewhere between 20 and 30 hours of preparation time into your Amazon interview. Now, I know that for a first round interview, given I've just shared you some data from my time as a hiring manager, that only 10% are going to make it through round one, I know the odds are against you. And when the odds are against you, sometimes people's mentality is, well, I'm not going to put too much effort in because the likelihood of me making it through are very remote and I don't want to waste all the effort. Unfortunately, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't put in the effort, you're not going to be part of the 10%. So even if you are just at round one, you do need to put in a good 20 to 30 hours of preparation so that you really, really know your stuff and you maximize your opportunity to make it through round one. And then if you do, you won't have to put in the same 20 to 30 hours when you get to round two, because past you will already have done that. So you then only need to put in a fraction of the amount of time to tweak, to polish, to come up with new examples if you've used old examples, or if you forgot something that you didn't mention that you wanted to mention, etc., etc. So that's my view. I have definitely seen on social media people talking about 50 hours and 60 hours. That I think is excessive. So I wouldn't personally suggest that amount of time, but definitely 20 to 30 hours, depending on where you are in the spectrum that I spoke about earlier, is what I think is probably the right kind of bracket to be focused on. So that was your first question. Your second question is, how long does it take to go through my academy? Okay, so my entire academy, if you were to watch the whole thing from beginning to end, back to back, is 10.5 hours worth of content. But most people don't sit down and work the whole thing end to end on a huge binge. You can dip in and out of my academy. You can shortcut it by focusing on certain areas and other areas. And then if you make it through to the next round, go a little bit deeper, etc. So yeah, that's my academy. 10.5 hours. Took me about, I think, 900 hours to create. So I promise you, every single hour or minute of that 10.5 hours is worth it. Blood, sweat, and tears in that. Okay, is it okay to reschedule interviews multiple times so that you're well prepared? I would not suggest doing it multiple times. Once you could probably get away with, but more than once, your recruiter is going to start getting a little bit irritated with you, and your interviewer is going to get irritated with you as well. So one reschedule, I would say, no more than that. And when you are thinking about the schedule for your interview, you have to balance the how long am I going to need to be prepared and how long, I'm so sorry, how long can I risk waiting? Because the Amazon interview process is a first past the post process. So the first person that convinces them they're bar raising will be offered the job. And they don't stack people together. It's a conveyor belt. So again, video on my YouTube channel, which is, I can't remember the title of it now, something on the lines of what you need to know about your competition. It's a conveyor belt. So they don't gather in all of the resumes and then give them to the hiring manager, who goes through them all, discards some, then keeps the rest, and then invites all of those people to interview, and then compares all of those people, discards some, and then moves a group onto round two. That's not how it works. It's a conveyor belt. So as soon as your resume comes in and the recruiter gives it the once over and decides that you are a good prospect, they chuck it over to the hiring manager, who'll review it and decide whether to move you on to round one. If you're moved on to round one whilst you're being interviewed for round one, somebody else's resume will be looked at by the hiring manager. And by the way, whilst you're at round one, someone might already be at round two or even at loop. So if you take too long to get to your interview, it's very possible that somebody else who's ahead of you in the conveyor belt will prove themselves to be bar raising and get the role, and then you've missed out. So there is a tension there between getting in there quickly so that you don't miss out on the opportunity, but not getting in there too quickly so that you're underprepared. There's no perfect formula, I'm afraid. You just have to, based on your own comfort levels, make a decision. Thank you for the questions. Okay. Can you quote operational metrics improvement example and deliver results, or will it have to be strategic? Okay, so unclear what your definition of strategic is versus operational. Everybody will have a different definition of what you mean by that, but I don't think it matters. You need to quote metrics. What they want to understand is impact. Now, if your impact is an impact on kind of something that is strategic for your organization, fine. If your impact is something that is tactical and day-to-day, that's fine as well. They want to know that you are moving the dial. So whatever the metric is, you want to be able to tell them it started here, it ended up here. This is bigger than that, and it's wonderful. So I kind of can't give you the specifics of strategic or operational because I don't know what you mean by that, but I don't think it matters anyway. You need data. You need to prove that you've had an impact. That's it. Doesn't matter where, when, how. You have to have an impact. Well, it does matter where, when, how. That's the behavioral piece. Ignore that I said that. I might cut it out of the video. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. But you need to have numbers. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry, everyone. Okay. Let's have a look. What else do we look? Knitting. All right. Yeah. So as with everything, in Amazon, not everything, as with many things, there's no firm black and white process on this. So Nitin, I'll just give you what I would be doing or thinking if I was a hiring manager or an interviewer or a bar raiser. 3 years ago, I wouldn't waste my time reading those interview notes. I would probably look and see what the outcome was, obviously, whether it was inclined or not inclined. Sometimes they're inclined and people don't take up the jobs. I would also look for what the role was. I would probably take a brief look at the mix of calibrations on the different leadership principles that they tested you for. But 3 years ago, I would not waste my time reading in detail the notes that they wrote. So much can happen in 3 years' time across the span of 3 years. So can't guarantee you that no one's going to be looking at those notes. All I can do is tell you what I would or would not do as a hiring manager or an interviewer in terms of where I'd invest my time. I hope that helps. Okay. Sonali, this is interesting. I often wonder where people get these statements from. Is it true that interviewers who belong to HR, again, not clear whether you mean recruitment or HR, but anyway, I don't think that matters for the next bit, will be assigned only HR-specific LPs for questioning? I have no idea what HR-specific LPs are. There are no HR/recruitment specific LPs. None of the LPs are specific to any skill set, any job family. All of the LPs are relevant to all of the roles in Amazon. Now, clearly, some roles have leadership principles that are more important than other leadership principles in those roles. If you're an analyst, dive deep is probably going to be incredibly important. If you are an account manager, earn trust is probably going to be incredibly important. But the whole point of the leadership principles is that they're meant to be completely the DNA of every single Amazonian in every single role at every single level. So I don't know where this thing that you're asking me has come from, but it's complete and utter nonsense. So no. I hope that helps. Some of these myths that are flying around, they're just bonkers. I'm going to do a whole myth busting thing, I think, because some of them are just totally nuts. Okay. Oh, hi, Radhi. You got a job. You're joining Amazon on September the 13th. Congratulations. Crowd goes wild. I'm thrilled for you. Congratulations. That's 3 days after my birthday, just so that you all know. Brilliant. Congratulations. I'm really, really pleased that my content helped you get there. Have fun, work hard, make history. Work hard, have fun, make history. I can't remember which way around it goes, but all of those things. Congrats. Well done. Great achievement. Okay. Oh, yeah. So Mehran, I'm going to give you a link actually at the end of this where you can go and get one of my courses completely for free. So I will put a link, it'll show up on the banner at the end. So you will be able to see where you can find my courses. Okay, so let me just have a spin up, see if there are any more questions that I missed. If you have any more questions, please do keep dropping them into the chat. I'm going to spin back up. All right, so I'm going to cover off this because it is a bit of a hot topic. Where was that? Where was this one? Oh, I've lost it. All right. Work-life balance in AWS. You heard working hours are long mostly. So is it worth trying an AWS just for sake of getting into big tech? All right. So Pranav, I didn't work in AWS, so I cannot talk specifically about AWS. I can talk to you more broadly about Amazon. So I think in every role in any high-performing organization, you'll find times where it's bonkers. If you go and talk to anybody who works in retail, they will tell you that in the run-up to Prime Day, in the run-up to Black Friday, all of those things, it's bonkers. And yes, some of them are going to end up working a 12-hour day in the run up to those things. But then there are quieter times where you're not working 12-hour days. That was my experience anyway. Obviously, I can only talk to my experience and the experience of the people that the couple of hundred, maybe a few more than a couple of hundred Amazonians that I worked with very closely on a day-to-day basis across my 5-year tenure. I had times where I worked really hard. I had times where I didn't work quite so hard. It was never an easy life, but you don't join an organization like Amazon or Facebook or Microsoft or Netflix. You don't join those organizations to have an easy time. You join those organizations because they're going to challenge you. They're going to introduce you to things that you did not know. They're going to help you grow, probably at a kind of 5x of what you would be able to grow in another organization. They'll teach you things that you would never, ever learn on an MBA course. You join these organizations to develop yourself and develop your career. So Amazon and these other organizations, they're organizations that people do love to bash. Everybody loves to bash Amazon. Is it an easy place to work? No. Is it a place worth working at? Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, I would not change anything about the time I spent investing in Amazon because of what I got out of it. Is it worth joining for the sake of going into big tech? Well, you've got to decide that. It depends what you want with your career and where you want to go. Do I believe that working in those organizations helps step change your knowledge, your capability, your career path? Absolutely. Is it hard work? Absolutely. You have to decide what investment you want to make in your future. That's up to you. Okay. I hope that was kind of at least gave you some food for thought. All right. Let's see if there's anything else that I missed. If there are any other questions. Okay. Beauteous every day. I might just keep answering your questions because I just like saying that name. What a great name. So how many people go through Loop actually land the job? So it is hugely variable between different teams, different business units, and even different roles. So there's a range here. The range that I'll give you based on my experience for my own roles, based on my experience bar raising, based on my experience talking to other hiring managers and interviewers and bar raisers, is it's going to range somewhere between 30 and 50% when it comes to Loop. Exactly who's at 50 and exactly who's at 30, I couldn't tell you because, of course, it changes so much, even within a particular business unit, even within a particular team, even within a particular role, it's going to vary, but it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 50% in my experience. These are not exact numbers that I quote to you that I have gathered from anywhere specifically inside Amazon. It's based on my broad experience and the conversations that I've had with colleagues. Hope that is at least insightful. Oh, Gabe. Are you allowed to bring notes into your Loop? So there's no rule that says you can't. I'm a strong advocate for bringing notes into interviews. An interview is not a memory test. I feel very strongly about that. They're not there to test your ability to remember stuff. They're there to try and explore your experience of the past to understand whether it shows the types of behaviors that they're looking for in Amazonians. In which case, there is a lot to remember and there are a lot of points that you're going to want to land. So my advice to candidates is that you should bring in some notes. I suggest they be on paper, not on a screen. It's very, very off-putting as an interviewer if you see somebody's eyes disappear off over to the other side and then to obviously start scrolling and their eyes to start spinning around. That's off-putting. The other thing is if you put it on a screen, the temptation to put lots of words on the screen is there, and you end up spending far too much time reading your own words rather than talking to your interviewer. So I suggest just a little notepad, something like this with a couple of bullet points on it, just to help you stay on track. I would also explain to your interviewer that you do have some very light notes that you will be referencing. So when they ask you your first question, first thing is say, is it okay if I write down the question? Because you're going to want to do that. And then the next thing you say is just to let you know, I do have some light notes here to refer to if I need them. I'll obviously only refer to them very lightly. Only one candidate has ever come back to me and told me that their interviewer asked them not to refer to their notes. I cannot see, other than if a candidate was literally reading a script, I can't see any good reason why an interviewer would not want you to be able to have little refresher notes in front of you to keep you on track, because they want you on track. Because if you're on track, they get the evidence that they need, and the interview is a good use of their time. The worst thing as an interviewer is to have your time spent on something that's a complete waste of time. So if you are nervous, if you are worried about remembering the things that you need to remember, I would absolutely say bring in some notes, light notes, bullet points on some paper, and warn your interviewer you're going to be referencing them lightly, and make sure you only reference them lightly. Good luck, Gabe. I'm nervous for you now. Okay. Yep, okay. I'm just having a quick spin. Okay. Yep. Here we go. Mr. Danson01. Is it okay to give non-work examples? Good question. My guidance is, unless you're a graduate or someone with very little career history, don't do it. The reason why I say that is Amazon is trying to understand your behaviors in a professional context, because when you're joining the organization, you're going to be joining them in a professional context. And therefore, they're going to want to know that those leadership principles, those behaviors, you are able to present them in a professional context. It would be very, very strange if someone sat there and spoke about their soccer team, the community soccer team that they run, about their ability to earn trust or hire and develop the best, and not be able to present you an example from work, because you'd be wondering, well, if this person has the skills and capabilities to do that outside of work, then why have they not come to me with an example from their work? It's much, much harder to get confident that someone can demonstrate those behaviors in a high pressure, challenging, ambiguous, all of the things where, that are contextually relevant to work that are probably not contextually relevant to the life outside of work. Context is really important. So as I said, Mr. Danson, unless you are a graduate where you just don't have that work history to pull from, or you're a very recent person on the career ladder and you don't have a huge amount of history to pull from, don't do it. I hope that helps. Okay, what else do we have? So we have about 3 minutes left. All right, Nathan. I'm going to answer Nathan's question. Can't see another one there, which I can answer. I don't usually go here, Nathan, because I talk about Amazon interviews and the amazing insight that I can offer to get into Amazon. I don't really talk about the Amazon performance process very often because it's not relevant to what I do. But hey, no other questions at the moment, so I'm going to answer this one for you. So your question is, what could give cause for an Amazonian to be placed on a PIP? Well, the same thing that would give cause for anybody in any organization to be put on a PIP. When you work at Amazon, and indeed where you work anywhere else, you should have clear objectives, smart objectives, where it's very clear what you're supposed to deliver and by when. And if you don't deliver those things by the time that you are committed to delivering those things, as with any organization, Amazon is going to be looking at that as a performance challenge. If you are consistently missing those goals on your objectives that are smart objectives, in the same way as if you were missing them in any other organization, your manager is going to be talking to you about why it is that you've been unable to deliver those goals. Now, sometimes the goals are unachievable because they were never really achievable, even though you didn't know that at the time. And that's a conversation to have with your manager. Sometimes they are just misses that you've been underperforming. So I know there's so much out there. I saw something from the Business Insider on LinkedIn, an article about a forced distribution curve, blah, blah, blah. I think everybody's a little bit naive if they don't believe that pretty much all organizations are looking for their top performers and are looking for their lower performers. And they're looking for that because they want to make their business better. The only way to make your business better is to have the best people for your business in your business. Doesn't mean that the people who are the lower end of performance are bad professionals, unskilled, etc., etc. Some jobs are right for some people and some jobs are not right for some people. So in brief summary, I don't believe that Amazon in its performance management process is any different from any organization that I have worked with or for in the past. I just think there's a lot more noise about how it works because Amazon is an interesting organization to put news articles out about and get lots of clicks and lots of engagement. So I was confident and comfortable with the performance process in Amazon that I ran as a manager of a very large team. To me, it was very, very similar to the processes that I ran when I worked for British Telecom, which is the incumbent teleco in the UK at a director level. I don't think it's any different. I just think you hear a lot more about Amazon than you would do about British Telecom. I hope that helps. Okie dokie. So just looking, we are at time. Let me just see if there's one more question I can get in. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to find one more that I think would be. Yeah, Eric, so I'm just going to cover this one off for you. Yes, I think it would be fine to use open source projects as an example because although you're not doing it for an employer, it is still professional work. It is contextually still completely relevant to what you would be doing in a job at Amazon. Code is code. It's not like you're talking about, for example, the football team. So yes, open source projects would be absolutely fine. All right, so I think we are at time now. So I did say to a few of you that I would show you how to get to the Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. So here is the URL. I never know which way around it goes. There we go. For the Amazon Interview Whiz Academy. Please go there and get yourself my Customer Obsession Masterclass completely free. In there, you will find the 4 facets for customer obsession. You will find the things that they are looking for when you give your example for Amazon interview questions around customer obsession, exactly what they're looking for. And it will show you a mock interview of how your interview might go on the day. I give it away completely free. Clearly, I give it away free because I would love you to look at my content and think it's great and buy more. But I give the customer obsession one away specifically because it's relevant to absolutely everybody. If you make it all the way through to loop, every single one of you, I promise, will be asked the customer obsession leadership principle. So if I was giving anything away, that was the one to give away. So please go grab it. You don't end up on some giant marketing email list or anything like that. It's free. Please take it. I really hope that you like it and it brings you back to my academy. If you don't, well, sucks for me. So please go grab it. Enjoy it. As I said, I think about 60 hours of my blood, sweat, and tears went into that one. So it's not something I give away flippantly for free. There's a huge amount of my time and effort that went into that. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it benefits you. Thank you very much for joining today, everybody. I will be back again on Monday. So please come along. If you have any other questions, check out my YouTube channel. Most everything that people tend to ask me is already actually on my YouTube channel. Thank you for joining. For those of you who have interviews coming up, good luck. Fingers crossed for you. If you got the role, well done. Congratulations. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks for coming along, everybody. Stay safe. Bye.